My beloved brothers and sisters, we live in a world where kindness is often taken for granted, and generosity is sometimes abused. Islam encourages us to be merciful, to be kind, to give, and to help. But at the same time, our beautiful deen teaches us wisdom. Not everyone who asks for help truly deserves it, and not every situation requires you to sacrifice your time, your energy, or your resources. There is a difference between helping someone in genuine need and allowing yourself to be exploited by those who only wish to take advantage of you. Allah Almighty has given us a mind, a heart, and guidance in the Quran and Sunnah to know how to balance mercy with justice. When the Prophet Muhammad taught us about charity, he reminded us that intentions matter most. Actions are judged by intentions. If you help someone, do it for the sake of Allah, not for recognition or return. But do not confuse sincerity with naivety. A sincere believer gives, but a wise believer gives in the right way at the right time to the right person. That is why Allah repeatedly tells us in the Quran about spending in His cause with wisdom. He did not say, spend without thought, but He said, spend with care, avoiding extravagance and avoiding miserliness. Sometimes people will come to you with stories, tears, and requests. Your heart may soften, but Islam does not ask you to be blind in your giving. The Prophet himself discouraged helping those who were lazy, who did not want to work, and who only wanted to depend on the charity of others. Instead, he encouraged them to strive, to earn, to use their abilities. So, when you help, ask yourself, is this person truly in need, or are they simply refusing to make an effort? Because when you give to the wrong person, you are not only losing your resources, you are actually fueling irresponsibility and discouraging effort. There is also a great danger in burning yourself out by helping the wrong people. Some of us spend all our time and wealth trying to please everyone around us, yet we forget our own families, our parents, our children, or even ourselves. Remember, my brothers and sisters, your first responsibility is to protect your deen, your health, your family, and those who are directly under your care. If you neglect your duties at home while trying to save the world, then you are not fulfilling the balance that Allah requires from you. Help begins with your circle, and then it spreads outward. Allah Almighty teaches us that real help empowers others. When you give, you should give in a way that uplifts, not in a way that enslaves. For example, giving money to someone who will use it for haram purposes is not help, it is harm. Providing endless assistance to someone who refuses to work is not help, it is enabling laziness. But supporting the orphan, the widow, the sick, the oppressed, this is true Islamic giving. The Prophet was always generous, yet he was discerning. He directed the wealth of charity to those who would benefit, who were oppressed, who had no one else to support them. That is wisdom. So, my beloved brothers and sisters, do not let guilt drive your decisions. Sometimes you will have to say no, and that no can be an act of wisdom and an act of mercy. It is not harshness, but protection. Protection of yourself, your family, and even of the person you are refusing. Because when people learn that they cannot misuse others, they are forced to stand on their own feet. Allah Himself reminds us in the Quran that He does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. If someone refuses to change, your endless help will not change them either. Always remember, kindness is not weakness, and saying no is not cruelty. True kindness is when you direct your help to those who deserve it, when you give for the sake of Allah, and when you ensure your giving brings real benefit. This way you will protect your time, your energy, and your wealth, and you will also fulfill your duty in the best way possible. May Allah grant us wisdom, may He make us generous in the right way, and may He allow us to recognize when to give and when to withhold for His sake. Ameen. Islam is a religion of balance, wisdom, and mercy. Allah Almighty has commanded us to help one another in goodness and righteousness, but He has also warned us not to assist in sin and wrongdoing. Many times we misunderstand this balance. We think helping everyone at every moment in every circumstance is a noble act. But in reality, not everyone deserves your help. Helping others is not just about giving blindly. It is about giving with understanding, with justice, and with a vision that truly benefits the one receiving. When we give without thought, we may be feeding laziness, supporting wrongdoing, or even draining ourselves in ways that Allah does not require from us. The Prophet Muhammad taught us that every deed is judged by its intention. But he also showed us through his life that helping is not always about immediate giving. Sometimes the best way to help is to teach, to guide, or to encourage someone to stand on their own feet. When a man once came to him asking for financial help, instead of simply handing him something, the Prophet asked him what he had at home. The man said he had only a mat and a bowl. The Prophet had them sold, and with that money he bought an axe. He gave it to the man and instructed him to go to the forest, collect firewood and sell it. After some time, that man came back with enough to feed himself and his family. This was a lesson. Real help empowers. It does not enslave. Real help brings dignity, not dependence. Many of us today fall into the trap of thinking that saying yes is always the right thing. We keep giving our time, our wealth, and our attention, even to those who exploit us or those who refuse to make an effort. And what happens? We become exhausted, resentful, and drained. At the same time, the truly needy people, the orphan, the widow, the one with no support, are neglected because our energy has been wasted on those who did not deserve it. Islam teaches us to prioritize, to use our mind and heart together. You are not being cruel by refusing to help someone who refuses to help themselves. You are actually protecting them from long-term harm and protecting yourself from unnecessary loss. Sometimes people will try to guilt you into giving. They will say things to make you feel bad if you don't respond to their requests. But remember, Allah is the one who provides for every soul. You are not responsible for solving everyone's problems. You are responsible for fulfilling your duties to Allah, to your family, to your parents, and to those truly deserving of your help. If giving to one person means neglecting these priorities, then that giving is misplaced. The Quran reminds us not to extend our hands completely in spending, nor to withhold completely, but to maintain a balance between the two. Balance means giving when it is right and withholding when it is necessary. Another important point is that helping the wrong people may actually harm society. If you give money to someone who will use it for intoxicants or haram activities, you have indirectly supported their sin. If you continue to help someone who refuses to work while they are fully capable, you are encouraging laziness. But if you help a student gain knowledge, or a poor family put food on the table, or a sick person receive treatment, then your help is bringing goodness to society. This is what Allah loves. The Prophet said, the most beloved of people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to others. Notice he didn't just say those who give the most, but those who bring the most benefit. There is a difference. My brothers and sisters, kindness does not mean weakness. Mercy does not mean allowing yourself to be used. Even Allah, who is the most merciful, does not grant His mercy to those who oppress others and refuse to turn back to Him. If our Creator sets limits, then we too must set limits. Learn to say no when it is needed, and do not feel guilty about it. A believer is wise, thoughtful, and aware. Helping should uplift you spiritually, not drain you emotionally. It should uplift the receiver, not make them dependent. So the next time someone seeks your help, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, will this help empower them or weaken them? Will it bring benefit or cause harm? Is this the best use of what Allah has entrusted me with? If the answer is yes, then give with an open heart, and Allah will multiply your reward. But if the answer is no, then withholding is an act of wisdom, and Allah will still reward you for your intention and for protecting your resources. May Allah grant us wisdom in our generosity. May He make us people of balance, and may He accept our efforts to help where it truly matters. Ameen. We must understand that helping others is an act of worship when it is done sincerely for the sake of Allah, but it is also an act of wisdom when it is directed in the right way. Not everyone who comes to you with a request is truly deserving of your assistance, and not every situation requires you to say yes. Islam is a deen that teaches us to use our heart and our intellect together. It is not only about compassion, it is about justice. Sometimes we think that being kind means never refusing anyone. But the truth is that saying no can be an act of mercy when it prevents harm, protects you from being drained, and forces the other person to take responsibility for their own life. When we look at the example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, we find that he was the most generous of people, but he was also the wisest. His generosity was not careless, it was thoughtful and purposeful. He directed his help to the poor, the weak, the oppressed, and those who could not support themselves. He encouraged the companions to use their skills, to work, and to provide for themselves rather than depending on others. This shows us that Islam encourages productivity and dignity, not dependence and exploitation. If the Prophet had simply given without consideration, he would have created a society of beggars. Instead, he created a society of workers, builders, leaders, and givers. We sometimes feel guilty when we cannot help everyone, but remember that even Allah has placed boundaries. He is the most merciful, yet He does not forgive those who insist on associating partners with Him unless they repent. If the Creator Himself sets limits, what about us as His creation? We must learn to set boundaries in our lives. If someone keeps taking from you without appreciation, without making any effort to improve their situation, and without sincerity, then stepping back is not cruelty, it is wisdom. You are protecting yourself from exhaustion, and you are teaching them that life requires responsibility. Another important lesson in Islam is that our responsibilities are prioritized. The Quran reminds us to take care of our parents, our families, our children, and those directly under our care before extending beyond. If you spend all your wealth and energy on strangers while neglecting your own household, then you have not fulfilled your obligations correctly. The Prophet said, "The best of you are those who are best to their families." Sometimes we are quick to say yes to outsiders, but we ignore the needs of those closest to us. This is misplaced kindness, and it can lead to regret later on. We also need to understand that real help brings empowerment. If you keep giving someone fish every day, they will never learn to fish for themselves. But if you teach them how to fish, you have given them a lifetime of provision. This is the principle that Islam encourages. When someone is struggling, but willing to work, that is where your help brings the most reward. When someone is weak, orphaned, widowed, or oppressed, your assistance is a means of restoring their dignity. But when someone is lazy, careless, or ungrateful, your repeated help is not improving them, it is destroying their motivation to change. The Quran tells us, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. If a person refuses to change their habits, their mindset, or their effort, then no amount of your help will change them either. In such cases, your endless support becomes a burden rather than a blessing. Saying no may push them to finally take responsibility and seek change. Sometimes withholding is more beneficial than giving. My brothers and sisters, never allow others to manipulate your emotions. People may use guilt, tears, or pressure to get what they want. But remember that you are accountable to Allah, not to people on the Day of Judgment. Allah will not ask you how many people you pleased, but He will ask you how wisely you used the blessings He gave you. He entrusted you with wealth, time, and energy, and He expects you to use them where they will truly bring benefit. Wasting them on those who misuse them is not righteousness, it is a lack of wisdom. So learn to help in ways that uplift, guide, and strengthen. Give to those who cannot give back, support those who have no support, and invest in those who are trying to better themselves. And when it is necessary to refuse, refuse politely but firmly, knowing that you are not turning away from goodness, you are protecting yourself and protecting them from greater harm. This is the balance of Islam. May Allah grant us the ability to recognize where our help is most needed. May He guide us to give with wisdom, and may He accept every act of charity we perform sincerely for His sake. One of the most beautiful qualities a believer can have is compassion. The heart of a Muslim is soft, merciful, and eager to help. But at the same time, our religion teaches us that compassion must be guided by wisdom. Helping everyone without distinction may sound noble, but in reality, not everyone deserves your help. Allah Almighty has not asked us to give blindly, He has asked us to give thoughtfully where it will truly benefit. This is why the Quran describes believers as those who spend in ease and in hardship, but also warns them not to waste wealth or give in ways that lead to harm. Often when someone comes to us for help, we feel an immediate pressure to say yes. We fear being seen as selfish or uncaring. But Islam does not measure kindness by how often you say yes. True kindness is measured by whether your action pleases Allah and brings genuine benefit to the person in need. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is not to give them what they ask for, but to guide them towards a better path. If a person is capable of working but chooses not to, giving them endless support is not helping. It is encouraging laziness. The Prophet Muhammad reminded us that the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, though there is goodness in both. By saying no to laziness, you may be pushing someone to become that strong believer. We also must protect our own well-being. Helping the wrong people repeatedly can drain us of energy, time, and resources, leaving us unable to help those who truly deserve it. Imagine giving all your charity to someone who misuses it, while an orphan goes hungry or a widow goes without support. This is not justice. Islam is a religion that calls for justice before generosity. That is why Allah describes himself as both Al-Rahman, the most merciful, and Al-Adl, the most just. If our Lord combines mercy with justice, then we too must learn to combine compassion with fairness. There is also a danger of helping in ways that lead people to sin. If you know that what you give will be used for haram, then withholding is a form of mercy. Helping should never contribute to disobedience. True giving is when your support brings someone closer to Allah, not further away. Think about it. If you give someone money and they use it for intoxicants, you share in that sin. But if you support someone's education, treatment, or livelihood, you share in the reward of every good they achieve through it. That is the wisdom Islam teaches us. My beloved brothers and sisters, Allah reminds us in the Quran that He will not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. You are not responsible for solving the problems of the whole world. You cannot carry everyone's burden. You are responsible only for what Allah has placed within your reach, your family, your dependents, your community, and then, when possible, the wider world. If you exhaust yourself trying to meet endless demands, you may end up neglecting the duties that matter most. A believer's mercy must start at home, then extend outward in balance. We also must realize that saying no does not mean rejecting someone with harshness. The Prophet never turned people away with anger. Even when he could not give, he would respond with kindness, with a gentle word, with a dua. Sometimes a sincere prayer or a word of encouragement can be more powerful than material help. If you cannot give, you can still comfort. If you cannot provide, you can still guide. Helping is not limited to wealth. It includes time, advice, effort, and compassion. So, my brothers and sisters, do not let guilt control you. Learn to say yes when it will bring benefit, and learn to say no when it will prevent harm. Both yes and no, when said with sincerity for the sake of Allah, are acts of worship. A Muslim is not careless with their generosity, nor stingy with their blessings. A Muslim is balanced, thoughtful, and wise. The Prophet was generous, but his generosity never encouraged wrongdoing. It built people, it strengthened society, it uplifted the weak, and it guided hearts back to Allah. That is the model we must follow. Remember, you are not rejecting people when you withhold help that will harm them. You are protecting them. You are not being cruel when you refuse to give endlessly to those who misuse your kindness. You are giving them a chance to stand on their own feet. And most importantly, you are preserving your strength for those who truly need it. May Allah grant us the wisdom to know when to give and when to hold back. May He make our charity a source of empowerment for others, and may He reward us for every sincere intention, whether we say yes or no, so long as it is for. Our deen is built upon compassion, but it is also built upon wisdom. Allah Almighty tells us in the Quran to cooperate in righteousness and piety, but not to cooperate in sin and transgression. This means that while we are encouraged to help others, we are also commanded to ensure that our help does not support wrongdoing or lead to harm. Too often we confuse generosity with weakness, thinking that we must say yes to everyone and sacrifice ourselves for every request. But the truth is, not everyone deserves your help. Helping is an act of worship when it is placed in the right direction, but it becomes a mistake when it empowers the wrong people or drains you to the point of neglecting your responsibilities. Consider the life of the Prophet Muhammad. He was the most generous of people, yet his giving was full of wisdom. When he saw someone in genuine need, an orphan, a widow, a traveler, or the oppressed, he rushed to their aid. But he also encouraged those who were capable of working to earn their own livelihood rather than relying on constant charity. He wanted his ummah to be dignified, independent, and responsible. If he had simply given to anyone who asked without consideration, society would have become weak and dependent. Instead, he built a community of people who were strong, self-reliant, and at the same time compassionate to those who truly could not help themselves. This balance is what we must learn. Sometimes people will come to you repeatedly, asking for favors, money, or time, yet making no effort to change their habits. You might feel that denying them is harsh, but in reality, giving to them constantly is not kindness. It is enabling them to remain in the same situation. Islam does not encourage enabling, it encourages empowerment. Real help lifts a person up, it does not keep them lying down. By saying no in such situations, you may be giving them the opportunity to wake up, to strive, and to take responsibility for their own lives. This form of tough love is sometimes the greatest form of mercy. Another important point to remember is that your resources are a trust from Allah. Your wealth, your time, your skills, even your energy, all of it has been given to you as an amana. You will be asked on the Day of Judgment how you use them. If you spend them carelessly on people who misuse them, you are wasting the trust of Allah. Imagine giving money to someone who uses it for sinful purposes. You have indirectly funded their disobedience. But if you direct your help towards a student who wants to learn, a poor family who needs food, or a patient who cannot afford treatment, then you are investing your resources in something that benefits humanity and earns the pleasure of Allah. Helping should not be random, it should be purposeful. We also must remind ourselves that our first responsibility is to our family. Many times people extend themselves outward so much that they neglect those closest to them. The Prophet said that the best of you are those who are best to their families. If your own children are in need, if your parents are struggling, if your spouse requires your support, then your priority is with them before others. Spending on your family is also an act of charity. Ignoring them while assisting strangers is a form of imbalance that Islam does not teach. Prioritizing does not make you selfish. It makes you just. It is also essential to remember that not all help is material. Sometimes people come to us asking for money, but what they really need is advice, encouragement, or guidance. A kind word, a sincere dua, or even showing someone a way to improve their life may be more valuable than handing them wealth. The Prophet taught us that even a smile is charity, so even when you say no materially, you can still help spiritually, emotionally, and morally. You are not rejecting the person, you are redirecting them towards a more beneficial path. My beloved brothers and sisters, do not let people manipulate your kindness. Some will use guilt, pressure, or emotional tricks to make you feel obligated to give. But remember, you are accountable to Allah, not to the demands of people. On the Day of Judgment, Allah will ask you how you used your blessings. If you spent wisely, with sincerity, and for His sake, you will be rewarded. If you wasted your blessings on those who did not deserve them, you may regret it. Therefore, learn to say yes when it brings benefit, and learn to say no when it prevents harm. Both can be acts of worship if they are done for the right reasons. So let us follow the example of the Prophet. Let us be generous, but let us also be wise. Let us give, but let us give in ways that uplift. Let us say no when it is necessary, and let us never feel guilty for protecting ourselves and directing our help where it truly matters. May Allah grant us insight in our generosity. May He make us people of balance, and may He accept every act of kindness we perform sincerely, for Islam is a deen of mercy, generosity, and compassion, but it is also a deen of intelligence, responsibility, and balance. Allah Almighty has placed upon us the duty to care for one another, to support those who are weak, and to help those in need. Yet, at the same time, He has commanded us not to waste, not to enable wrongdoing, and not to spend in ways that bring harm. This means that while helping others is an act of worship, not everyone deserves your help. Our kindness must be guided by wisdom, and our generosity must be directed in a way that pleases Allah. When we look at the Quran, we find many verses encouraging charity, but we also find verses warning us against wastefulness. Allah says, "Do not waste, for indeed the wasteful are brothers of the devils." What does this mean for us? It means that even when giving, if we are careless, we may fall into sin. If we give to someone who will misuse our help, or if we drain ourselves until we cannot fulfill our obligations, then we are not being righteous. Islam teaches us to find the balance, to help in ways that truly uplift people and protect us from regret. The Prophet Muhammad was known for his immense generosity. He gave to the poor, he supported the orphans, he stood for the oppressed. But he was also wise. When someone came to him asking for support while they were capable of working, he encouraged them to use their skills rather than depend on handouts. In one famous incident, instead of giving money directly, the Prophet helped a man start a trade by providing him with the tools to earn a living. This shows us that helping is not only about giving wealth, it is about enabling dignity, independence, and long-term benefit. Real help is not about creating dependence, it is about building strength. We sometimes make the mistake of thinking that refusing someone is un-Islamic, but Islam teaches us that saying no at times can be more beneficial than saying yes. If your giving causes harm, it is not considered an act of worship. Imagine someone asking you for money to continue a bad habit. Would helping them really be kindness? No, it would be cruelty disguised as generosity. On the other hand, if you say no and guide them towards something better, that is true mercy. This is why the Prophet taught that the strong hand, the one that gives and empowers, is better than the weak hand that only takes. Another important reminder is that your first responsibility is to yourself and your family. The Quran reminds us to protect yourselves and your families from the fire. You cannot do this if you are neglecting your loved ones while trying to meet endless demands from others. Many people burn out because they try to please everyone, and in doing so, they fail in their duties at home. Remember, spending on your family is also sadaqah, taking care of your parents, your spouse, your children. That is among the most rewarding forms of charity. If saying yes to strangers means saying no to your family, then your priorities are misplaced. We also need to recognize that not all help is material. Sometimes what a person truly needs is not money, but advice, encouragement, or dua. The Prophet told us that even a smile is charity. So if you are unable to give, or if giving would not benefit, you can still help in other ways. A kind word, a reminder of Allah, a suggestion that directs someone to opportunities. All of these are powerful forms of help. This broadens our understanding and prevents us from thinking that saying no materially means we are failing in kindness. Brothers and sisters, be careful of those who try to manipulate your generosity. Some people become experts at playing with emotions, using guilt and pressure to get what they want. But remember, you are accountable to Allah, not to them. On the day of judgment, He will ask how you used the blessings He gave you. If you used them wisely, with sincerity and balance, you will be rewarded. If you wasted them on those who misused them, you may regret it. That is why it is better to give less to the right person than to give more to the wrong one. So the next time you are faced with a request for help, pause and think. Ask yourself, will this help truly benefit? Will it empower or weaken? Will it bring this person closer to Allah or further away? If the answer is positive, then give with an open heart, for Allah will replace what you give with something better. But if the answer is negative, then refusing is also an act of worship because you are protecting the blessing of Allah and directing it to where it will truly count. May Allah grant us wisdom in our giving, strength in our decisions, and sincerity in every act of kindness we perform. Ameen. One of the greatest tests in life is knowing when to give and when to withhold. Islam teaches us that generosity is a noble trait, but it also teaches us that wisdom is part of faith. If every act of help was simply about saying yes, there would be no need for discernment. Yet Allah, in His infinite wisdom, has told us to use our minds and hearts together. He has commanded us to spend in good but warned us not to support wrongdoing or enable laziness. This means that not everyone deserves your help, and sometimes withholding is more beneficial than giving. When we study the Quran, we find that Allah praises those who spend their wealth in His cause, but He also criticizes those who waste, and do not spend wastefully. Indeed, the wasteful are brothers of the devils. This verse teaches us that careless giving is not virtue, it is a form of irresponsibility. Helping must be directed with purpose. If someone uses what you give in harmful ways, your generosity is not building them, it is harming them further. And on the day of judgment, we will be asked how we used every blessing entrusted to us. Wealth, health, time, and skills are all amana, and we must use them wisely. The life of the Prophet Muhammad is full of lessons on this balance. He was known for his unmatched generosity, Whenever genuine need was presented, he responded. He supported the weak, he lifted the oppressed, he gave to the poor. But at the same time, he encouraged responsibility. Once a companion came asking for help. Instead of giving him money, the Prophet guided him to work with his own hands. He taught that it is better for a believer to earn by his effort than to depend on others. In this way, the Prophet combined compassion with empowerment. He did not want to